So this part is part of an optical test assembly. It's for an automation application. And so we can see a few of the features. There are features on the side here that mount sensors, and then there are devices under test that would sit in between sensors that are facing in from opposing sides of the assembly. These components are stackable, so in use, there are multiples of these stacked on top of one another. And this is a 6061 aluminum part, and this particular piece we're looking at is unfinished. The final part to the customer was anodized. So our customer came to us with the device, which fits into the ends of this assembly that needed to be tested, and the sensors, and basically a geometric layout of where the sensors needed to be relative to the device, and the variations on the test that might require multiples of these to be stacked on top of one another. Our customer, in early stages of development, had mocked up the test hardware in their own lab, and basically they had placed the devices and then they had mounted their sensors on like gimbal brackets off of aluminum extrusion. And so it was a kind of very modular, very adjustable for the customer to develop the angles of incidence and things that they wanted for the sensors. But it was not a robust solution. It was not a scalable solution, and nor was it meant to be. It was a proof of concept on the customer side. And so they came to us with a functional proof of concept and, basically said, here's where the device needs to be, here's where the sensors need to be, and a number of other considerations in terms of overall packaging to put this into some sort of an enclosure. And then we worked with the customer's engineering team to develop a modular building block, basically, that we have here. They could be stacked on top of one another. It met all of the basic requirements, and then we were able to have some DFM feedback along the way to control the cost and lead time and interchangeability of these parts is a big consideration with a modular component such as this, that if the customer purchases a batch of these now and they purchase a batch of these 6 months from now, and the intent is to be able to stack them, they need to be able to mix and match. They need to make sure they're going to fit together while maintaining, very good mechanical alignment through multiple layers. We worked through multiple iterations with providing, we did some mock-up CAD work kind of based on initial DFM considerations and based on the input from the customer. And so we sort of traded CAD files back and forth, and eventually came to an agreement on a design that sort of met all the customer's requirements that we were comfortable with from a manufacturability standpoint. And ultimately, if the volumes on this product were to scale and it were to go elsewhere, that it was fundamentally just a good design. It wasn't intended only to be manufactured here. And so there were multiple loops back and forth to address various concerns, and really for the customer to have something on paper and then be able to go get more input internally to understand, from others how, again, to try to future-proof the assembly and, what features they may not have built into their initial proof of concept that, might be useful 6 months or a year or a couple design cycles down the road. There were no particular challenges with this component. There are a couple other components which interface between these and the sensor assemblies which go in, and there is an adjustment mechanism, an alignment mechanism that allows for the customer to make a few variations for different test configurations. There was some complexity in kind of the development of that alignment mechanism to make it very robust, yet also easy to adjust, such that it would be easy for someone to adjust, but then it would not self-adjust after that point. But the real challenge with this this particular part was probably just more of a timeline gate for the customer, where once they had developed an internal proof of concept that they really needed to get to scale and get something up and running, both internally and then at an external contract manufacturer that was working on their devices, that they needed to very quickly scale not only the hardware, but all of the assembly and test instructions to make the whole system work. This is 6061 aluminum. So with this particular project, we were able to help our customer very quickly transition from an in-house test stand, which was built on 80/20 extrusion with gimbals, to very quickly transition that into a manufacturable assembly at scale, which could be operated at an off-site diagnostic facility and would provide a very cost-effective means of obtaining repeatable results in their testing.